Okay, let's get back to the diners, and where have you actually traveled to photograph and really research this whole diner
Diners.
thing?
Well, of course, there was a, for a while, in large part due to, I believe, I may be wrong, this is my thought, to Ralph Going and especially John Bader's, really beautiful paintings of diners. Um, that there was a resurgence in interest in diners from other architectural, American roadside architectural organizations, and even to the point where there was a conference held in I believe Fraser, Pennsylvania, right near Philadelphia, on the American diner for about 3 days, put by an American Association of Architectural Interests, and I'm trying to remember the name of the organization, but I think it was called the American Association of Roadside Architecture, something
Well,
like
the
that.
Red Rose Diner is some listed with some historically in some historic buildings in Pennsylvania. Anyhow, yeah. So
Well, the Red Rose Diner and consequently, there was a magazine that was published called Roadside Magazine for a few years. And I kept all my copies. Then it was changed. And by the way, they went out of business, and they used to. Yes, their reporter used to go around and interview diner owners and keep up with diners. And so between that and Ralph Going's book, The American Diner Then and Now, and then there was the Diner Museum that put out books. I have the roadside, all the roadside maps and the roadside books and guides on American diners, which of course is very outdated now. But I began to hunt them down, what was left. And because I love driving the back roads of America and doing the urban American landscape.
right.
So I would just look for diners and make a list if I saw any, altered or whatever condition, wrecked, deserted, being restored, on-site diners, individuals, as joint, or any what I call joints. And so began making a long list. And many times I go and revisit many of these. And for instance, in Worcester, Massachusetts, which is the home of the Worcester Lunch Car Company,
Right.
there's a beautiful diner that's been kept in the family for decades and decades and decades called the Boulevard Diner. It's a 1936 Worcester Lunch Car, absolutely in impeccable condition, like this, incredible. And they stay within the family. I think they're on the National Historical Register. There is the Miss Worcester diner, that sits across the street from what was the factory that made those diners.
Right.
The building is still there.
Huh.
But I've seen so many disappear, like in the New Haven area. They all disappeared except for one, which was moved from Ansonia. I saw so many diners disappear in the 80s and 90s, especially the 1990s, killed. But as I cut across roads, I always like to find these diners because they remind me of the fantasies I had in high school. And so the Red Rose Diner, as I found out today when I came in many years ago, and estimating about 20 years ago, for many summers till recently, I would always make the drive with my wife Janet across from Connecticut to Cattaraugus, New York, which sits just north of Jamestown, that area, between Buffalo and Jamestown.
Right.
And we take different routes. You take a lot of times 5 and 20 to parallel the New York Thruway and go that way, or we would take the Southern Tier Expressway, and of course I'd look for old diners, and I found them in Auburn and in Herkimer and in Little Falls and in Newark, New York, and of course in Albany and in Monticello, and in Elmira, Horseheads, a beautiful, a Silk City diner from the late 1930s. Silk City diner.
That's a familiar name, right?
Yes, the Sullivan. It was owned by the people who owned the Sullivan Trucking Company.
Oh, okay.
What they did, they had their headquarters in Horseheads, and apparently the couple, when they were young, used to go to that diner when it was in Elmira. So they bought the diner and moved it to Horseheads, and then along the Southern Tier, there was a diner in Binghamton. I don't know if it's still there or not, called the Red Robin, and of course then I drive along Route 6 Wellsboro, of course. I found several diners in Northwest Pennsylvania, Union City, the Union City Diner, spelled D-I-N-O-R, how they spell two, and then one in Erie, Pennsylvania, an old late 1930s Silk City, which I think is still there.
I've heard of that
Yeah,
one. We have
which is
some.
also on the American. I think they keep it up.
Okay.
It's in excellent shape. Fredonia, and then believe it or not, in Lisbon, Ohio, there's a 1950s, and I'm trying to remember if it's a Mountain View or a Pullman or I can't remember the make, but it's an all-metal classic 50s diner, and I know if I checked my notes I would remember, and shame on me, but it's and that owner keeps that all in the original condition, and it's called the Trolley Stop Diner, etc. I just had lunch there, but they so I look for these kind of joints, as I go, and I've been for years now, and I love another interest, very close interest of mine is doing dusk and night photography in small urban centers of the Northeast. Great Lakes Northeast area of the United States. So consequently, you run into a diner that has late hours, and I enjoy that. Individual on-site diners. A place called Patty's Place in Thomaston, Connecticut. A beautiful Mountain View diner in Middletown called O'Rourke's. It was an exquisite condition.
How do you spell that?
Apostrophe.
O'Rourke's?
O'Rourke's, yeah.
O'Rourke's, okay.
O apostrophe capital R-O-U-R-K-E apostrophe S, I believe.
Okay.
And he, a few years ago, had a bad fire. I think a cheeseburger warmer, whatever was left on by the help, started a fire and gutted the diner. He was uninsured, and it was too bad because his diner was very popular. It was Brian O'Rourke, who loves his diner, is one incredible chef, influenced by a lot of the Cajun and New Orleans cooking. But thanks to the community and people who loved him, people helped him raise money, and he rebuilt that diner.
Really? That's a story in itself, right?
Oh God, you go online and look at O'Rourke's, and he rebuilt that diner, and got donations from Wesleyan, as far as Booth Wesleyan University. People from around came, and he rebuilt that diner, and he had fundraisers, etc. So he is a very generous man in the community. Always gives a tremendous amount to charities, I believe, and so.